So I was mucking around with Automobilista 2 this weekend, checking out how to mod with new tracks and cars and things that are outside of the scope of the actual title itself. I stumbled upon a new update, version 1.6.9.9. Man, they're getting exciting with those dot releases. But this is actually kind of interesting. They've added some additional physics and visualizations to improve wet weather and changing conditions. And the exciting part about that is it's not just in the title and how it looks and feels, but also in how AI behaves. Because if for the first time, AI can pursue wet lines. This is really important because, as we all know, a rubbered in line, when it gets wet, it gets slick. And if AI can't go out there and search for grip, they're not as competitive and they're not as much fun to drive against. And so including this is actually quite a unique aspect of this particular release of Automobilista 2. So I'm interested in that. But they've also included some new exciting things in terms of DLC, some more mid-2000s cars, and some real humdingers in that list. Some exciting GT1 2005 cars. The Lister Storm GTM. Lister, of course, goes back to the 50s. This is a V12 front engine, really amazing, exotic car that got born in the early 90s and carried through to this era. The Saleen S7R. Saleen is a brand recognized for doing a lot of modifications to street cars. My personal favorite was the Saleen Mustang, but this is the dedicated race car in the GT1 class. There's a free car that Automobilista 2 has included here. This is the Milano 55 GT1. Of course, that's a faux brand representing something that we all know very well in its red livery. GT2 2005 includes the Spyker CB GT2R. The Panos Esperante GTLM. And the TVR T400R. GTR 2004 gets a new edition with the Gillette Vertigo Strife. And the Maserati Trofeo gets the Maserati Grand Sport. Given the changes to AI and wet weather, I thought it might be interesting to conduct a little bit of an experiment. But before I actually do, I want to set two things straight. First of all, this is the first day in the Saleen S7R. Haven't driven it much and haven't had a lot of experience with it. Also, Spa isn't my best track. I love the track. I think it's a great track, and it's coming up as a major race, so I think that that's important, which is why I'm showcasing it, but it's not my best track. We're just going to get a sense of the lines here in the dry. All right, let's see what kind of lines they drive in the wet. So at the end of the day, the differences there are quite subtle, and that's rightly so. One of the things you note the difference between dry and wet is in the wet, they stay off the curb. AI tend to recognize that curbs are slick and are bad for business if you're in the rain. The second thing is you notice that they're sticking to the middle of the track a little bit more. It's not quite as dramatic as some of the rain lines that I have typically seen people drive, but it is off the shiny, polished section of the track, which means that they're finding grip, and that's great. The one thing I didn't really pick up on as much as the nuances of like puddles and dealing with that sort of thing, of puddle avoidance and moving the line as it goes along. I'm sure if we look at this over a greater period of time, we'll start to see some interesting characteristics over the course of a race as the wet line matures, recedes, so as it dries, or as the track goes from dry to wet. I'm sure that there's some interesting transition, and the AI probably follows that along. This is a very short experiment because I wanted to get a video done, but I think that this is really positive. I think that this may add a little bit more fun to the racing experience in Automobilista 2 by virtue of making the AI behave more believably. So you have that immersive effect, but then you also, too, don't have AI getting traction in places maybe they shouldn't realistically be getting traction and getting better times for it, which means that you're going to be more competitive driving against them and having fun in that solo race experience. Automobilista 2 is a great, great sim for driving by yourself against AI. It always has been, and I think that this is a tremendous step forward to make that even better than it already was. V1.6.9.9, I think that this is a good release and definitely some really, really cool content that I'm looking forward to drive a little bit more, and I hope you are too. Thanks for coming along for the journey, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye now.
Spaß macht Rennsport.